If there's one phrase that explains why there's a black blade problem in One Piece, it'd be Mihawk upscale, a meme within the fandom that stems from Mihawk's title as the world's strongest swordsman, which suggests that anyone that centers their fighting style with a sword is a victim of Mihawk by default. This title only accounts for swordsmen that are alive during Mihawk's reign and not swordsmen that predate him or succeed him after Zoro claims the title of the strongest. However, this agenda has gone so far that it's even been used satirically outside of the context of One Piece to any character that's holding a sword. Sasuke uses a sword, Mihawk upscale. Sanjin Woo uses a sword, Mihawk upscale. 90% of Bleach, Mihawk upscale. Oh, what's that in Goku's hands? Looks like another Mihawk upscale. As funny and as ridiculous this meme is sometimes, there is a reason for this, at least in One Piece, and it's not just Mihawk's title, it's his black blade Yoru. Some of the strongest characters in One Piece use a sword or blade, and other than the god of the blade Ryuma, Mihawk is the only one with a black blade. What sets it apart from Shueisha is that it's also one of the 12 supreme grade blades, making it the strongest blade in the series. Every sword has its own personality, and it's the role of the swordsman to bend its personality and will in order to master it. The reason why cursed blades exist is that weak swordsmen failed to tame the most exceptional blades and grew to fear them. So Mihawk being chosen by the strongest sword and bending Yoru's will is a testament to his strength. The strongest blades are durable enough to channel the user's immense power, which is exactly what Murako Magiri is credited for, as it not only channels Whitebeard's haki but also his tremor fruit. This is more stock for Mihawk as he was chosen by the most capable blade that can channel the most power. It's even stated in One Piece Rainbow that Mihawk is the only one who can wield or master Yoru. Something to consider with this statement is that it's from the second animation logbook, which covers the anime up until the Enies Lobby arc, so whether it means that no swordsman in history is strong enough to master and wield Yoru is completely interpretive, but it would be consistent with the current day events of the story up until the Enies Lobby arc. So what makes Mihawk so special in comparison to almost everyone else? Black blades are still somewhat of a mystery, but here's what we know so far. One of the key characteristics they are renowned for is its durability, to the extent that it wouldn't bend even if a dinosaur was to step on it. This hardness is likely attributed to the fact that it has been permanently imbued with armament haki, as that's the shade of haki that's responsible for armoring a weapon for offense and defense. Mihawk tells Zoro that had he infused his blades in haki back in Baratie, his swords wouldn't have broken. Any blade can become a black blade like Yoru, so Mihawk guides Zoro to master armament haki. We know for a fact that Mihawk was referring to armament haki here, as not only does Zoro's hardened swords turn black like Yoru, but even in Zoro's Vivicard entry, it's stated that by imbuing his swords with armament haki, blades other than Shueisha become black blades. Having said that, there's a difference between a temporary black blade that dissipates after the flow of armament haki has stopped, and a permanent black blade that keeps its traits and color even after the user has long passed away. It's said that the god of the blade Ryuma forges black blade Shueisha through his long history of battle. Based on that, One Piece Magazine 10 even suggests that it might be due to the strength or skill of the swordsman that forms a permanent black blade. This part is just my own opinion, but it seems that there's a level of connection or understanding a swordsman needs with their sword that can only be achieved through battle. For example, Zoro was only able to understand Enma's personality through his battle with King, which helped him truly tame the Great Blade. Since the discovery of how black blades are formed will be shown through Zoro's journey, it's significant to consider what he's learned up until this point. In Alabasta, he learned Ryo and the Breath of All Things, which allowed him to cut iron. He learned both armament and observation haki during the time skip, and in Onigashima, he developed the King of Hell's sword style, which infuses Conqueror's haki into his swords. I bring all this up because in Road to Laugh Tale, it questions whether haki is the key to forging a permanent black blade. This should go without saying, as the color and hardness comes from armament haki, however is achieving the permanent shade a development beyond Conqueror's haki as well. The fact that Zoro's development in Conqueror's haki has come before black blades in his journey suggests that it's likely a stepping stone or a prerequisite of that feat. So when we add up the little bits and pieces to this black blade puzzle, we start to see the bigger picture. So given that Mihawk wields the strongest sword, formed a black blade which is rooted in haki and achieved through countless battles due to the swordsman's strength, as well as potential unknown factors, does Mihawk actually have an all-time perpetual upscale from other swordsmen? At the start of the Marineford War, Mihawk sent a slash at Whitebeard in order to gauge the true distance between Whitebeard and the rest of them. This has become an extremely polarizing subject due to the language being used, so there's a difference in opinion as to whether Mihawk aimed to measure the gap in power, the strength of Whitebeard's crew, or something else. Ironically, Zoro used the same verbiage against Mihawk as he described the gap in their skill as a kind of distance and farness. The reason it's interpreted that way is because they are in a fight. Given that Mihawk sent a slash at Whitebeard after announcing his intentions, the context would suggest that he aimed to gauge the gap in their power. This makes sense as Whitebeard was renowned as the strongest in the world and an equal of the Pirate King. In the eyes of some, they thought that an equal of the Pirate King had arrived to battle the Marines and Warlords. However, as we all know, Whitebeard had grown old and had declined from his heyday, which is what Mihawk is indirectly addressing. Whether or not Whitebeard was truly the strongest despite this is actually irrelevant here, as Mihawk determined at first glance that Whitebeard seemed rather close by comparison. As we've established, the verbiage of distance, farness, and closeness in this context is about their power. It's stated in Mihawk's Vivrecard entry that he's not limited to the talent or ability of swordsmen, but also sees the true power of those that stand before him. In other words, Mihawk's extremely skilled in observation haki in terms of sensing others' strength, and he determined that an old, post-prime Whitebeard is close in power to him. An assessment like that from Mihawk himself doesn't help the argument that he's the strongest swordsman in history due to being the master of the strongest Black Blade. There's also the path of Luffy's dream in comparison to Zoro, where Mihawk concedes to the path of the Pirate King being more difficult than surpassing him. Now, it's important to consider that becoming the Pirate King isn't a solo mission and requires a lot more than just the individual strength of the captain. However, the aim to surpass Roger is represented with a level of strength. As Don Chinchao put it, the Supreme King who stands atop all Supreme Kings can be called the Pirate King. Since a fangless Chinchao was able to compete with Luffy, he treated Luffy's ambition as an absurdity by rhetorically asking if he can trounce the Marine Admirals, the 4 Emperors, and surpass Roger. To trounce is to heavily defeat someone or something easily, and that's actually the intended meaning in Japanese. The level of the Pirate King is arguably portrayed as a level of strength that can easily defeat an admiral or an emperor. This is actually consistent with the lineup of emperors and admirals at the time of the Dressrosa arc, as Luffy has recently defeated Kaido and is at the bare minimum comparable to him, if not slightly stronger, and Luffy still has room to grow before he can reach Roger's level. So from the end of Wano up until Luffy surpasses Roger, it will highlight the actual gap between the average emperor and the Pirate King. Even if we assume that Chinchao is just being extremely charitable and just exaggerating the difference, the fact is Roger is portrayed to be of a higher caliber than an emperor like Shanks, whom Mihawk once rivaled. It's even stated in the Weekly Jump magazine that Shanks has the sword skill to compete with Mihawk, which reinforces Roger's superiority. To put Roger's level into further perspective, Sengoku deemed it necessary for Ace to be eliminated even if it meant war with Whitebeard due to his potential to one day stand at the pinnacle of the next generation of pirates. Chinchao echoes the same sentiment as well, as he deemed eliminating Ace as a masterstroke by the Marines, which further emphasizes Roger's level of power being the apex for the era that succeeded him. Mihawk is also a player in the Throne Wars, which, as Dofi called it, the greatest battle for power in the history of piracy. At the time, Mihawk was a solo warlord, but now he's a member of Cross Guild, which has become an Emperor crew that's striving for the One Piece. Due to this, Mihawk is unintentionally in active competition with the other emperors who were previously silver medalists to Whitebeard, who stood atop the seas as the King of the Sea, who was the closest to One Piece. All this would be consistent with Mihawk's own assessment of an old and post-prime Whitebeard being close in power by comparison. So to circle this back to the Black Blade problem, As of this recording, the story definitely doesn't present Mihawk as the strongest swordsman of all time by virtue of being the master of the strongest black blade. However, Mihawk has clearly developed a level of strength that's given him the insight to progress his sword beyond the likes of Roger and Zebek's cherished blades. Two things can be true, and those that think that these are contradictory positions, to be frank, are being disingenuous. A black blade is definitely a feat of strength without a shadow of a doubt, and the fact that a blade could rise in rank due to it being advanced into a black blade is an example of that. However, the idea there's a prerequisite strength threshold that's beyond the likes of Roger or Zebek in order to forge a black blade is currently unfounded. As for the idea that a master of a higher grade blade is the stronger swordsman due to the sword having a stronger personality to tame isn't consistent. For example, is Fujitora, who wields a supreme grade, stronger than Ryuma or Odin, who are wielders of great grade blades? Probably not, right? Or has Zoro, who has wielded Wado Ichimonji since the beginning of the story, always been stronger than Law, who wields an ungraded blade? I'm sure you see how this line of logic falls apart. At the end of the day, One Piece has been an ongoing story for over 25 years. So along the way, Oda's intent for certain character strength can change over time. After all, the reason Zoro is a three-sword style user is because it was Oda's childish way of making him even greater than the greatest swordsman Musashi Miyamoto, who was known for using two swords. So if Oda's intent is for Zoro to become the strongest swordsman in One Piece history, even stronger than his ancestor Ryuma, what does that mean for Mihawk's strength, who will be Zoro's final hurdle? So even if you disagree, you can at least understand where the Mihawk propaganda comes from. To wrap this up, Mihawk's upscale is only a fact so far as they are a swordsman or scaled to swordsman active during his reign as the world's strongest. That includes the likes of Shanks, Fujitora, Nosjuro, Big Mom, Rayleigh, etc. So here's some food for thought. Is it possible that swordsmen who forge a black blade will be revealed to be automatically stronger than any other swordsman? Yes, maybe. However, is it probable? No, not really. Would it be consistent with how things have been currently portrayed in the manga? No. Does it ultimately matter? I would say that's subjective. But those are just my thoughts on black blades and the Mihawk upscale trend that has been and will continue to run rampant. But let me know what you think in the comments below. Like the video and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed. I've been the one and only Zage, and until next time.